What is a legacy? Legacy is that which we pass on to our children, our progeny. Your legacy isn't written yet and won't be until a long time from now, but the legacy you have received comes from the very beginning of time. In the beginning, man wandered the earth searching for food. The Paleolithic era was a hard time for mankind, and at one point, man dwindled down to less than 5,000 people in the entire world. However, mankind had one evolutionary tool that the rest of the animal kingdom did not: brains. Step by step, over millions of years, mankind began to develop new ideas, new tools. They developed language, laws, culture. Finally, man began to write things down. This was the end of prehistory. In the Fertile Crescent, people began to use new technologies and start working together. Instead of wandering around the lands in search of food, they began herding and farming their own food. People began working together to defend that territory, and people started to specialize in their job. The first civilization to rise up in an area of the world we today call the Middle East. We know this time period as Mesopotamia. The Mesopotamians developed the first cultures, the first laws, the first religions in man. The first great epic story, Gilgamesh, came to life in this time, and man started making better weapons and tools from brass rather than from stones or sticks. The Egyptians quickly rose to prominence next, and their civilization touched the world, leaving behind relics we still study today. The Indus River Valley was a great mystery, but they had working sewers, apartment buildings, written languages, and so much more 2,000 years before Europe. Another civilization rose in the Far East along the Yellow River. The Huang He civilization was the first great Asian civilization, and though it was chaotic, the Chinese would endure for millennia, often inventing new technologies that would change the world. One of the first civilizations that rose in the West was the Greek civilization. First, the Minoans built a trading empire throughout the Mediterranean, but then they were washed away and a new group of people came down from the Caucasus Mountains and took over. These Mycenaeans were warlike, but brilliant at taking other ideas and making them better. The Greeks took on the most powerful civilization on earth at the time, the Persians, and beat them back, and eventually took them over. Greek language, philosophy, governments, religions, education swept throughout the Middle East and Europe, changing the world. Alexander the Great raised his armies in Macedonia, and with the help of the Greeks, he conquered the Persian Empire, spreading Greek culture and influence throughout the most of the known world. This is why the Greeks are seen as the first real inventors of Western civilization. A small town along the Tiber River in a place called Italy started growing larger and larger at about the same time. The people here were able to take ideas from the Greeks and the Etruscan Empire and make them their own. They developed battle tactics that were the best in the world at the time, and combined with forward-thinking ideas like democracy, republicanism, they quickly grew. One war after another, they eventually conquered even the Greeks. Their empire stretched from Spain to Egypt and beyond. However, the Roman Empire could not last, and by about 500 CE, the western part of the empire collapsed. With the fall of Rome comes the Middle Ages. Some call this the Dark Ages, but that's not really true. Bad things happened, like complete lack of protections for the poorest people, the Black Plague, the Mongol invasions, and war. However, there were good things to come out of the Middle Ages, like the spread of religion, new ideas on governing, and advances in art. However, as time went on, the Europeans began to relearn things that they had forgotten. They learned how to defend themselves, they learned economics, remembered great arts and philosophies, as well as expanding on them. Europe grew large, and though they were not united, they soon set out to cross the world and conquer it all. Sailors were set out to China, South America, North America, Africa, and Australia. Before long, there were hardly any lands in the world that were not controlled by a European king or queen. A new nation came from this age of exploration, the United States of America. So what is the legacy of our forefathers? Since legacy means that handed down to those who came before us, we should look together at what the legacies of our forefathers were. What did we take from the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians? What did we take from the Greeks and the Romans? What did we take from the European Middle Ages and the Renaissance? Over this next year, we will work together to find out more.